I don't know why I agreed to go. My brother Nate has always been the more impulsive one between us. He called me on a Thursday afternoon, insisting he needed my help to deliver a package to someone a few hours away. "It's just a quick trip," he said. "You'll be back home by dinner." The truth was, I didn't have much going on. My recent move back to our hometown had left me feeling adrift. After years of working in the city and chasing a career I wasn't even sure I wanted, I needed a break. So, when Nate asked, I figured, why not? He picked me up in his beat-up pickup truck, the same one he'd had since high school. The passenger seat smelled faintly of motor oil, and the dashboard was cluttered with fast food wrappers. Sitting between us was a small, unremarkable package wrapped in brown paper. "What's in the box?" I asked as we pulled out of my driveway. "Don't worry about it," he replied, his tone casual but evasive. Nate was never one for details, and I didn't push him. He'd always had a knack for dragging me into his harebrained schemes, and I'd long since learned that it was often easier to go along with him than to fight it. The drive started out uneventful. We talked about trivial things, work, sports, the old friends I'd lost touch with. It was nice, in a way. Nate and I had grown apart over the years, and this felt like a rare chance to reconnect. About an hour in, we stopped at a gas station. While Nate went inside to grab snacks, I decided to inspect the package. I didn't open it, but I noticed something strange. The name on the label wasn't written in Nate's handwriting. In fact, it wasn't addressed to anyone at all, just an initial, L, and a P.O. box in a town I'd never heard of. When Nate returned, I asked him about it. "Just a favor for a friend," he said, brushing it off. "Who's L?" He hesitated, his usual bravado faltering for a moment. "It's complicated." I didn't press him further, but my curiosity was piqued. The town we were heading to wasn't on any major maps. The GPS led us down winding roads, past fields and forests that seemed to stretch on forever. By the time we arrived, it was late afternoon. The place was barely more than a blip, a few rundown buildings, a diner, and a post office. Nate parked outside the diner and told me to wait in the truck while he delivered the package. Naturally, I didn't listen. From the truck, I watched as Nate walked into the diner, the package tucked under his arm. Through the window, I saw him sit across from a woman who looked to be in her 60s. She had short, graying hair and wore a worn denim jacket. Curiosity got the better of me, so I got out and walked around the side of the diner to eavesdrop. Their conversation was quiet, but I caught snippets through the open window. "Shouldn't have kept it from them," the woman said, her voice firm but not unkind. "I didn't have a choice," Nate replied. "You always have a choice." I ducked out of sight as Nate stood to leave. When he got back to the truck, he seemed tense, his usual carefree demeanor replaced by something heavier. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Yeah," he muttered, not meeting my eyes. "Let's go." The drive back was silent, the air between us thick with unspoken words. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. "Who was she?" Nate sighed, gripping the steering wheel tightly. "Her name's Linda." "And the package?" "It's not about the package," he said, his voice quieter now. "It's about Dad." That caught me off guard. Our father had passed away nearly 10 years ago. He'd been a quiet man, hardworking but distant. Growing up, he wasn't the kind of dad who went to baseball games or taught us how to fish. He worked long hours at the factory and spent most of his free time fixing things around the house. "What does she have to do with Dad?" I asked. Nate pulled over to the side of the road and turned to face me. "She's our aunt," he said. The words didn't register at first. "That's not possible," I said. "Dad didn't have any siblings." "Not that we knew of," Nate replied. "But he did. Linda's his half-sister." Over the next hour, Nate told me everything. He'd found out about Linda a few months ago when he was going through some of Dad's old papers. There was a letter from her, written shortly before Dad died, but it had never been sent. In the letter, she talked about wanting to reconnect, to make amends for the years they'd spent apart. Linda had been born from an affair our grandfather had during his marriage to our grandmother. When the affair came to light, Linda and her mother were cut off entirely. Dad had known about her for years, but never told anyone, not even our mom. I didn't know what to do when I found the letter, Nate admitted. So I reached out to her. We've been talking, trying to piece things together. And the package? It was just some old family photos. She wanted to see what Dad had kept. By the time we got back home, my head was spinning. The idea that our father had lived his entire life carrying this secret was hard to comprehend. In the weeks that followed, Nate and I started spending more time with Linda. She told us stories about Dad we'd never heard before, stories about his childhood, his struggles, and the way he'd tried to protect her, even when it meant sacrificing his own happiness. It wasn't easy reconciling the man we thought we knew with the man he'd actually been. But in a strange way, it brought Nate and me closer together. For the first time in years, we weren't just brothers, we were teammates, working together to untangle the threads of our family's past. Looking back, that road trip changed everything. It started as a simple favor, but it ended with a deeper understanding of where we came from and what it means to be family. Sometimes, the truth is messy and complicated. But in the end, it's worth chasing. Second story. A couple of years ago, I got a text from an unknown number. It said, "Hey. Can you grab the cupcakes for Mia's party? She's so excited." I remember staring at my phone, thinking it was just spam. But something about the name Emily made me hesitate. It wasn't a name I recognized, but it felt oddly familiar. I replied, "I think you have the wrong number, but good luck with the party." To my surprise, the person responded almost instantly, "Oh shoot. Sorry about that, but thanks for replying." Most people just ignore wrong texts. That was it. I thought the interaction was over. But then, a few hours later, another message popped up, "Hey, this is going to sound weird, but I'm terrible with new numbers, can I ask who this is? You sound nice." I was skeptical. Who strikes up a conversation with a stranger over a misdial? Still, my curiosity got the better of me. "My name's Jake," I wrote. "And you are?" Her name was Tara. Over the next hour, we texted back and forth. She explained she was stressed planning her niece's birthday party and had accidentally typed my number instead of her brother's. She seemed genuinely kind, and there was something refreshingly human about her texts. By the end of the conversation, I felt like I had known her for years. What should have been the end of the story turned out to be just the beginning. Over the next few days, Tara and I kept messaging each other sporadically. The initial randomness of our connection faded into something that felt intentional. We shared snippets of our lives. She was a preschool teacher navigating a new city, and I was a freelance graphic designer struggling to feel fulfilled. Eventually, we decided to meet in person. We both acknowledged how bizarre it was, but Tara joked, "If you turn out to be an axe murderer, at least it'll make a great podcast episode." That kind of humor was so her, self-deprecating, charmingly awkward, and disarmingly funny. We met at a coffee shop downtown. I'll never forget seeing her for the first time. She wasn't what I expected, shorter than I imagined, her hair tied up in a messy bun. But her smile was magnetic, and I instantly felt at ease. We clicked. Over lattes and shared laughs, she told me about her chaotic move to the city and her dream of opening a creative art center for kids. I told her about my frustrations with my career and how I'd been feeling stuck for months. It was like meeting someone who spoke a language only I understood. As the weeks turned into months, Tara and I grew closer. Our friendship deepened into something more, but it wasn't without complications. She had just ended a long-term relationship before moving to the city, and I was carrying the weight of my father's recent passing. We both had baggage, and there were times when it felt like our timing was off. Yet, we always found our way back to each other. One night, after a particularly bad day, Tara called me in tears. She'd had a rough time at work, and the stress of everything was getting to her. I drove over to her apartment, bringing ice cream and the worst rom-com I could find on Netflix. We stayed up until 3 a.m., talking about everything and nothing. That night, she told me, "You're the best thing that's happened to me in a long time, Jake." Hearing that hit me like a ton of bricks. I realized then just how much she meant to me, but life isn't a rom-com, things weren't always perfect. There were arguments, moments of doubt, and times when we wondered if the randomness of our meeting was enough to build a lasting relationship. Still, we worked through it, one day at a time. Fast forward to today, Tara and I are about to celebrate our 3-year anniversary. She never did open that art center, but she runs creative workshops for kids on weekends, which she loves. As for me, I found a way to combine my design skills with my passion for storytelling. I work as a creative director for a non-profit that helps underprivileged youth. Sometimes, Tara and I joke about that first mistaken text. She likes to say, "I was looking for cupcakes, and I found you instead." It's cheesy, but it's true. One small mistake brought us together, and it changed the course of our lives forever. So, if you ever get a text from an unknown number, don't just ignore it. You never know, it might just be the start of your own unexpected story. Third story. It started at a dingy diner off the I-70 in Kansas. I was 2 days into a solo road trip meant to clear my head, but the truth was, I had no real destination. My girlfriend of 5 years had just left me for someone she met at a tech conference. My job felt like a dead end, and my apartment lease was about to expire. I figured driving across the country would somehow give me the clarity I was missing. The diner was the kind of place you'd only stop at if you had no other choice: faded linoleum floors, coffee that tasted like rust, and a jukebox that hadn't worked in decades. I was halfway through a plate of soggy pancakes when a guy around my age walked in, carrying nothing but a beat-up backpack and a skateboard. He had this scruffy, unkempt look, like he'd been on the road for weeks. He glanced around, spotted me sitting alone, and said, "Mind if I join? Place is dead." I didn't see why not. He introduced himself as Noah. He'd been hitchhiking across the country after quitting his office job in Chicago. His plan? To make it to California, skateboarding along the coast, and figure out the rest from there. There was something magnetic about his carefree attitude. I couldn't tell if he was deeply wise or completely reckless. After about an hour of chatting, he dropped this bombshell, "So, I know this is crazy, but do you mind giving me a lift west? I can chip in for gas." My initial instinct was to say no. Who picks up a hitchhiker and lets them tag along on a personal soul-searching trip? But something about Noah made me hesitate. He seemed genuine, and honestly, I was lonely. Against my better judgment, I said yes. That decision turned out to be the most pivotal moment of my life. Noah was, for lack of a better word, unpredictable. On the road, he'd randomly asked to pull over to explore the weirdest roadside attractions: world's largest rocking chair, a haunted gas station, a 24/7 Elvis museum. I'd always been the kind of person who stuck to plans, but Noah made me realize how freeing it was to embrace spontaneity. In Colorado, we camped under the stars because he insisted it was better than any motel. He was right. The Milky Way stretched across the sky in a way I'd never seen before. Noah talked about his philosophy on life: "We're all just borrowing time. Might as well spend it doing something that makes you feel alive." I wanted to laugh it off as the kind of thing people only say in movies, but as the days passed, I found myself questioning everything I thought I knew about stability and success. Of course, it wasn't all smooth sailing. Somewhere in Utah, my car broke down. We were stranded in the middle of nowhere, with no cell service and temperatures creeping toward triple digits. Noah didn't panic. He flagged down a passing truck and convinced the driver to tow us to a nearby mechanic. It cost me more than I wanted to spend, but Noah's calmness in the face of chaos rubbed off on me. For the first time in years, I didn't feel overwhelmed by the unknown. The most transformative part of the trip happened in Arizona. We stopped at the Grand Canyon, which I'd never seen before. Noah convinced me to hike down to the Colorado River, a grueling journey that tested every muscle in my body. Sitting by the river, completely exhausted, He said, "This is it, man. This is what it means to be alive." I didn't respond, but something inside me shifted. I realized I'd spent so much of my life chasing stability, steady jobs, long-term relationships, 5-year plans, that I'd forgotten how to just be present. By the time we reached California, Noah and I had become unlikely friends. He invited me to crash at a beach house he was renting with a group of fellow travelers. I stayed for 2 weeks, surfing for the first time in my life and waking up to sunrises over the ocean. Noah eventually took off to Mexico, and we lost touch, but the impact he left on me was permanent. That road trip changed everything. I didn't go back to my old life. Instead, I started freelancing as a travel writer and photographer, a job that's taken me to places I never dreamed of seeing. I learned to embrace uncertainty, to take risks, and to find joy in the little things. Looking back, I often wonder what would have happened if I'd said no to Noah that day in the diner. It's funny how one impulsive decision, one moment of trust in a complete stranger, can set your life on an entirely new path. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this: sometimes, the best plans are the ones you don't make.